every once in a while at church, you've got to do some like business stuff. I know it's not why you got up and came to church today. You came to sing and hopefully hear a little talk and all of that. But we always want to do a good job of keeping everybody in the loop of all that's going on around here, both in this room and outside of this room and behind the scenes. And so one of those things is our position for executive pastor is going to be going through a little bit of a transition. And some of you are like, I didn't even know we had an executive pastor. And here's what we mean when we say that, because it means something different at almost every church you go through. Our executive pastor is someone that helps with the operations and the business and administrative side of this kind of organization that is church. When you become a church of our size, there's a lot of that has to happen on a very regular basis. So remember, this room's full for this service. It was full for the last service and will be full for the next and full for the Wednesday night. So there's just a lot of people that call Great Lakes home, and we just want to do a good job always of making sure that when you give, it's taken well care of, and when you show up, we're ready for you and all of that. So there's just a lot behind the scenes that has to happen. So the executive pastor helps kind of direct and oversee all of those sorts of things. And for the last year and a half, an amazing friend of mine named Doug Gillespie has been helping by filling that position. What's interesting about Doug is that he retired 6 years ago, and then I kind of begged him to come out of retirement. And he did so lovingly, but maybe slightly begrudgingly. I don't know. If he's watching, he's probably throwing something at the TV because he did it with joy. But he's been amazing in that and just helped us kind of solidify and systematize a lot of things so that we're just in a place of strength to continue fulfilling our mission of helping people find and follow Jesus. But a little while back, he said, I'd kind of like to go be retired again. I worked really hard to get to that place, and I think it's time. So we began a process of looking for the next executive pastor here. And we talked to several people, had several interviews, looked at all kinds of options, and ran things through filters like chemistry and culture and competency and character and all of those great things that you've probably talked about in kind of your business world. And at the end of the day, the person that we settled on, for me, was it just became a no-brainer for a few reasons. One, he's so well qualified for this position and knows a lot of things that I don't know, and knows how to do a lot of things that I don't know how to do, and is already trusted by so many people that come to Great Lakes because he's been a part of Great Lakes for a really long time. In fact, he was on the Great Lakes staff once before, and if you were part of our Racine campus at any point, you would have called him your pastor. So will you give a warm welcome to our next executive pastor, Rex Hamilton.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, man. Some people are like, I've seen him before. So Rex has taught here from this platform. He's hosted our services and welcomed you several times. And was on staff at the Racine campus, was the campus pastor up there for several years, 5, 6, 7 years. You got to be careful. You can't say 6, 7 anymore. Yeah. But then took some time to work at another organization, an amazing one, but now you're coming back. So for those of us who were not part of Racine or have not been around for very long, tell us a little bit about you and about your family.
Sure. Yeah, so we came here. We are not native to this area or even to the Midwest. We came here, for those of you who don't know, from the great Northwest, Washington State, specifically the Seattle area, almost 8 years ago now. And it's just been a great move. And I think we've got a picture we're going to show here of our family. This was taken in Mount Rainier last summer. But my wife, Crystal, who a lot of you know, we've been married for 26 years now, which is crazy. Yeah. And our kids, I'll start from the left here in the back. My oldest is, we're just crazy proud of all four of these guys. But Cade is 21, Mason is 19, Taylor 17, and then our beautiful daughter, Brooklyn, who is 14. And so talk about time going fast. When we moved here, we moved here literally like 2 days before the first day of school. And Brooklyn was starting first grade, and she'll be starting high school at Case High School next
Wow.
year. So it's gone by fast.
Time goes by so fast. That's crazy. Yeah, I was wondering if that was taken around here.
No, it was not.
Clearly not. You don't see mountains like that.
No, unfortunately, no.
So share a little bit, Rex, about why Great Lakes. I mean, obviously, you have a deep, deep love for this place, having been on the staff, and then when you stepped away, continued coming to church here, and Crystal's been on our team all the way through there, and now you're coming back. So what is it about this community of people and this church that makes you go, I want to get back in and get back to that?
And that's a good question. I want to start by saying, because I've already had people ask me what happened at Habitat for Humanity. I worked as the director of development for Habitat for Humanity for the last 3 years, and absolutely nothing. This was definitely a pull back to GLC and not a push from Habitat. I love that organization, 100% believe it, and will continue to support it. And hopefully we can build a partnership with them. Yeah. Wink, wink. But so coming back here, you gave me a hug out in the lobby early this morning, and you didn't say, hey, welcome to your first day. You said, welcome home. And that matters to me because this does feel like home, and that's a big reason why I'm coming back. Within a month of serving as the campus pastor in Racine, I remember telling Crystal that I've been a part of some great churches. I've been going to church my entire life, and this was finally like the first church that I truly felt inside that 100% that I could be myself. And I've never been able to say that. And even though I was part of and leading great churches, there's just something about the DNA, the community that makes up this church that just is special. Yeah. And so if you've ever heard me say, or you will say in the future from the stage, that this is really a place where you can feel like you belong before you believe everything. I say that from a place of 100% conviction, because it really is true.
So good, man. I love that. If you were going to tell everybody one thing that might surprise them about yourself, what would that be? Just so they get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm in my early 50s. I know I don't look like it, but I am in my early 50s. And so I'm on a quest to stay as youthful as possibly can. And my entire life, I have been passionate about music. I'm not musical. You'll never see me on stage singing or playing an instrument. If you do, know that a bad decision was made by someone at some point. But I love music and concerts. I've always attended concerts. And one way that I find just fun way to stay youthful is I love to go to several concerts a year with one of my boys or whatever. It might be a small venue in Milwaukee or a large concert. But I will often, want to get up towards the front and be the oldest guy up there. And I love it. I do, and it takes me a week to recover. But I do love it. Concerts are just great, and especially connecting with my kids in that way. And so, you might not realize, but you might find me shoulder to shoulder in the concert someday in Milwaukee at the Eagles Club or something like that. So, yeah.
Did you go see Taylor Swift?
No, never. I have not. I've not ever been to a country music concert, but my last concert was with my oldest son. We saw Sleep Token together in Chicago. Yeah. All right. So
there's some Sleep Token fans in the room. I think what I heard is you all that sit in the front row, you're going to have a partner here soon, and you'll be sitting up front. That'd be good.
I might just jump off right now.
Well, we are so glad and so grateful that
Thank
you're
you.
here, Rex. We're
Thank you
excited
very much.
for it, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Love you all.
The best really is yet to come. So if you are new to Great Lakes, buckle up. 2026 is going to be a great year. We're going to continue our series called New You. And just in case you weren't with us last week when we kicked it off, take a look at the videos and that'll help you know where we're headed.
Now, if we apply the theorem here,
So something about me that you should know that I'm not proud of is that I have an insatiable desire to be right. Now, some of you are very nervous about what I'm going to say regarding this past weekend and being right. But I'm not going to do what you think I'm going to do. I like being right. I do. I also like being first. I like winning. So when I this is really working out great. I didn't plan for the parallel, but I like winning, and to the point where if I don't think I'm going to win, I'll usually not even try. And I like being first and all of those kinds of things. And those that can serve me well sometimes, but sometimes they can really get in the way of things. There's a dark side to that, right? There's a shadow side. And if any of you are wired like me, you know exactly what that can be. And it can quickly turn into a hindrance more than a help. And what I've learned as time goes on, and those things show up in my relationships with my kids, or people I work with, or people I live next to, or people that I drive next to or walk next to at the store. When those things start to show up, they can often get in the way of a healthy relationship. They can get in the way of real connection because they end up coming out sideways. They don't come out in a healthy way, they come out sideways in an unhealthy way. To the point where, and this is such a silly example, but I don't play video games with my kids most of the time because I'm terrible at them. One, and they're not terrible at them. They're really good at them, so they beat me all of the time. And I end up getting angry at them because I can't win. I can't defeat them. Or I'll get into arguments with them or get into arguments with friends about what feels like such stupid stuff when you look back on it. But I'm just hammering home I'm right. I'm hammering home that I know the facts and I know how they add up and you should listen to me and all of that kind of stuff. And I end up regretting how I'll behave sometimes. I'll end up regretting allowing that into the arena of the relationship, so to speak. But the older I get, the more I realize that I'm the one letting it in there. I'm the one bringing it in. It's not just happening to me. I'm the one opening the door, right? That's a reality because of how I am. And which means at the end of the day, I'm holding on to it. It's not holding on to me. I'm having a hard time letting it go. I'm having a hard time changing. I'm having a hard time learning or growing because there's some kind of comfort in how I'm wired. There's some kind of, this is just who I am that ends up coming out. But I'm also kind of sick of paying the price for that. So the question that I want to ask you this morning might make you a little uncomfortable. You don't have to answer it out loud. But what are the things that you're holding on to that are holding you back? Because at the end of the day, that's what my being right, that's what me having to win, that's what me having to be first does. It holds me back from the life that I want to live. It holds me back from being the person I want to be, the dad I want to be, the leader I want to be, the friend I want to be. That keeps getting in the way. And so the thing I want us to wrestle with together this morning is, how many of those things in your life, whether that's anger or greed, where you're just consumed with money or lust or whatever the case may be, the thing that's holding you back, or you go, this is limiting my life, how often are you actually holding on to that thing where it's not holding on to you? We sometimes want to blame it instead of looking in the mirror and realizing that we're the ones bringing it into the equation every day. We're the ones inviting it into our life. And so what happens is we come to a brand new year, January 1, and we start making promises to ourselves, and maybe even promises to the people around us about we're gonna get better at that thing. We get consumed with self-improvement, right? The idea is always this year will be better than last year. So I'm going to be better about my short temper. I'm going to be better about my lying. I'm going to be better about this. We talked about this last week. A little bit better is better. But the problem is we get so consumed with that part that we don't do the hard step of self-evaluation. That's way more difficult. Looking in the mirror and trying to really figure out who are we and how do we go about life and how do we relate to other people and how do we think when we're in certain situations, until we deal with that, it's going to be really difficult to get better. I don't know if you know this, but if you don't know where you are, it's really difficult to get where you want to go. You have to have that point of reference. You have to know where you're starting. And that's really what I want to help us do today is, where am I at today? Even though we're already 11 days into the new year, where am I in terms of the things that I want to improve on, the things that I want to get better at? And can I do this self-reflection? And why this is so important, at least to me, is because of a phrase that my probably grandpa introduced me to 40 years ago. It's a weird one, but I love it. He said, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still going to be a pig. What I do every new year is I go, I'm just gonna do this thing I saw on TikTok, or I'm gonna do this thing I saw on Pinterest, or I'm gonna do this thing I read on a blog, or this thing I read in a book, and I'm just gonna layer it on and layer it on and layer it on. And some of us get decades down the road. We don't even know why we do half the things we do anymore. But if we could, we would realize it started because we just want to do some self-improvement, right? Self-improvement can be like layers of paint. Did you know every time you paint your room, the room gets smaller fractionally? So many layers, you're going to take inches off your square footage in your house. But we do this all the time. We actually get smaller because we're layering on this self-improvement instead of dealing with the root, instead of dealing with the pig. The makeup's not going to fundamentally change the core reality. And I think you and I need to be the people, maybe the first people in the history of civilization to go, we're not going to worry about self-improvement until we've dealt with who we are, really. We're not going to deal with self-improvement until we've named the thing that keeps getting in the way of the life that we want to live, that keeps getting in the way of me being the person that I want to be. And here's why we're talking about this in church. You don't have the ability, as smart as you are, and as gifted as you are, and as strong as you are, to fundamentally change who you are. This is why we keep layering things on. We don't know what to do with the core of us. And for me, the only way I've seen any kind of change or shift in my core makeup is to look outside of myself, to look beyond myself, and to decide to turn over the reins of my life, or to turn over who gets to be the boss or director or leader of my life, that can lead me in a very different direction and lead to fundamental changing, not because I get better, but because He is better. And in case you have no idea what I'm talking about Jesus. That shouldn't surprise you, but if you're brand new to church, sometimes we make weird connections. And I think the best way for us to get better, the best way for us to be a new us, is to stop leading us, is to stop with the self-improvement, do some real self-evaluation, and look to a totally new option. And Paul would write about this throughout all of the letters that he wrote that makes up most of what we call the New Testament or the second half of the Bible. But there's a few sentences in his letter to the Romans that I think is so amazing because it kind of sets up this fork in the road where we're going to decide to let go of the things that are actually holding us back, and what he's going to say are leading us in a very disappointing direction, and instead hold on to this Jesus thing, this Jesus person, and follow him into what Paul's going to call life. This is how he writes it in the book of Romans. Don't you realize that you become the slave of whatever you choose to obey? In other words, whatever you say yes to, it becomes your master. Whatever you decide to say yes to, whatever you bring onto your calendar, you bring into your routine, the things you allow yourself to continue to be hung up on or be habitual patterns in your life, those things, they become your master. The pig's the master in the makeup situation, not the makeup. So those things ultimately kind of put the leash on and determine where we're going to go. And then Paul continues on. You can be a slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey God, which leads to righteous living. Either way, it's your choice. You get to decide how you're going to handle this. And the choice really becomes, am I going to keep holding on to the things that are holding me back, ultimately leading me down to what Paul calls death, or am I going to choose to grab hold of Jesus and lead towards life, what Paul calls righteous life, what Jesus called the fullest life? For you and me, I would call it the best life. We said this last week, that following Jesus makes your life better and it makes you better at life. I really do believe that. That I'm the best version of Josh when Josh is following Jesus. Because Jesus did this life thing, this human thing perfectly. Like he did it at a 10 and even better. So if I follow him, then maybe I could get a 7 or an 8. Probably not perfect ever, but closer. And Paul points out this very interesting dynamic. And I know, like a lot of times in churches these days, we don't like talking about sin. It's kind of an old school thing, so we sort of stay away from it. It makes us feel yucky. But I want to make sure we understand what we're talking about when we're talking about sin. Fundamentally, it's a barrier between us and the people around us. Those layers that we've piled on become fences. They become barriers between you and your spouse, barriers between you and your friends and your coworkers, your classmates. Ultimately, they're like the layers of the onion that come between us and others. And what's so interesting about God is he cares so deeply about that dynamic, the us and others thing. In fact, if you were to go back to the top 10 rules, the 10 commandments, right? Even if you've never been to church, you've heard of them. Did you know, though, that more of them are about interpersonal relationships than aren't? 6 out of the 10 are about how you and I relate. That's why they say things like, hey, you shouldn't murder people. That's going to kind of come between you and them. You shouldn't steal from people. You shouldn't lie to people. You shouldn't covet what other people have. You should honor your parents. Those are all relational ideas, how we interact with other people. And what happens is we allow the things that prevent that to get in the way, and that's sin. I would go so far, this is overly simplified, but I would go so far as to say, sin is anything that's bringing harm to you and harm to others. Anything that's doing you no good or doing those around you no good is a sin, because God cares so much about you and the people around you. And oftentimes we end up isolated and we're trying to get better, but we're not dealing with the core things that are getting in the way of the relationships that we want to have and the person or people that we want to be. So Paul says, if you continue to allow those things to be your master, be the boss, direct and dictate where you go in your life, it is going to lead to a very dead end. But if you decide to follow Jesus, he's going to give you freedom from those things that are holding you back. This is how he puts it in the same letter in the book of Romans. Thank God, once you were slaves to sins, but now you wholeheartedly obey this teaching we've given you. This is not a foregone conclusion that you have to stay the way you are. It's not a foregone conclusion that those things still have to be your master, that those things still have to hold you back. You get the choice to let go of them. You get the choice to do the Elsa thing and let it go. And then the promise is that this following Jesus offers you freedom from that captivity. It swings the door open, allowing you to actually move closer to the other people in your life, allowing you to move closer in a relationship with God. See, the thing is, so many of us will say this. I'll bump into people, that haven't been to church in a while out at Target or the gas station or whatever, and they'll say things like, well, I'm not going to church because if I walked in the door, there'd be a lightning bolt. Or if I showed up, there'd probably be a fire somewhere because, God doesn't want me there. We feel that tension between us and God. Or you're walking around Target and you find yourself in the gardening aisle because you saw so-and-so coming and you have nothing to do with gardening, but you got to get out of the way so they don't see you because you feel that tension between you and them. Something is in the way. Something is in the way between you and God. And our natural kind of thought is that it's something else's fault. But we've allowed that. And Paul says you can choose different. You can decide to take a different direction, not because you now know the way, but because he knows the way and has always known the way. And so we're free from those things that hold us back. A lot of us, the problem we have with letting go of the thing that's holding us back is that we know it and it's comfortable. And we might feel good as a result of it. Right? Like, to some degree, we would all argue the things in our life that are holding us back, our sins, the things we know we shouldn't be doing but do anyway, we would go, but they're fun for at least a minute. They're fun for a while. The next morning, they're maybe not so fun, though. And the long-term ramifications of those things are not so fun. Right? Like, we feel this every day. We don't always name it this, but we feel it. And so Paul says, what if you did this different? And instead of just layering on another layer of makeup, you look for a fundamental shift at the core. That you went in a very different direction from what might feel natural. And in another letter, he raises this really great question that I think you and I should wrestle with on a very regular basis. This isn't in Romans, this is in Corinthians, his letter to the Christians in Corinth. He says, don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? Given to you? That's so important. You didn't earn it. You do not belong to yourself. For God bought you with a high price. When was the last time the things that are holding you back in this life gave anything for you? Think about it. When was the last time they really improved your life, added to your life, even randomly indicated that it cared about your life? It's more a consumer than anything else. It's going to take. These things in our life, they always want more. You scrimp and scrape and cheat and stab people in the back to get that raise. Guess how long that raise is enough? About a week. And then when you hear somebody else makes more than you got to have that. Guess how long your brand new car satisfies? 30 minutes. One more video on the internet, right? How long before you need one more video on the internet? Drugs, booze, you name it. It's always going to want more. It's always going to take from you. And ultimately, it's going to make you smaller. Because it's just going to keep owning your life. It's going to keep taking from your life. And when we encounter this Jesus who came for us, and we read that God, the creator of the universe, is the one who gave something for us to better us, to improve us, to make us whole, that is so different from what we know. It's so different from what we've experienced. To me, it's the one place I've found that to be true. Everything else is always taking and always taking more. God's the one that's given more. And Paul would go on to talk about this. He said, he bought you. He gave you this life. And he says, so with that in mind, and he's going to bring it right back to the relational piece. In 1 Corinthians, he says, so with that in mind, honor God with your bodies. This to me is like, what? I didn't see that coming. Honor God with your bodies? I thought we were talking about like getting barriers out of the way of relationships with God and with other people and all that kind of stuff. And this is where Paul's going to end up. You know this. There's a very, very tight connection between our inner life and our outer life, right? The inner life is going to come out sideways physically one way or the other. Right? My need to be right, my need to win, my need to be first comes out physically. I'm yelling, I'm throwing things, I'm quitting things, I'm walking away from things. Right? It ends up being physical. So when God comes along, he says, so honor me with your bodies. It's not just that you got to show up to church. It's not just that you got to get on your knees when you pray or something like that. It's the whole of you. And the reason he says this is because we honor God by honoring each other. By raising each other up, lifting each other up, looking at each other as more than ourselves. Because Jesus took all of the rules, he took all of the commands, and he brought them down to one idea. Love others the way I love you. Love other people how Jesus loves you. And he humbled himself to the place of a servant and died on the cross for the sins of other people. That's the mandate. That's the template. And that's where Jesus is going. So when we follow him, now we are talking about a fundamental shift in who we are. A fundamental shift in how we see the world, how we see other people, how we enter into our relationships, in our offices, and our classrooms, and our neighborhoods, and the traffic jam, how we deal with all of that becomes different because we've decided to honor him by honoring them. And so I come back to the question, what are you holding on to that's holding you back? Because as we talk about this, I'm guessing a phrase keeps going through your head. Yeah, but. Yeah, that sounds really good. But I've got a 401k. Yeah, that sounds really good, but you don't know my husband. Yeah, that sounds really good, but I live next door to so-and-so. That sounds really good, but I'm really lonely. That sounds really good, but my self-esteem is in the tank. And that little thing makes me feel better. You are holding on to it more than it's holding on to you. And the thing to wrestle is, where's that getting us? Paul says death. The way I'm putting it is smaller. We're living less life. Life is less full. And we've become slave to something that's not a good master, that does not get us anything. So this offer to follow Jesus and start to fundamentally shift how we are, to me gets displayed in such a beautiful way a little bit later in this same letter by Paul. You've heard it before because I read it often from this platform, and if you've been to a wedding at any point in your life, you've probably heard this verse. We call it the love chapter. But to me, it's the definition chapter. John said God is love. So when Paul writes what love is, to me, it's a description of who God is. And then when Jesus says, you should love people the way I've loved you, it becomes a description of who we should be. Now, as I read this, you might want to put your own name in there instead of the word love, to see, does this describe you? Or are there things that you're holding on to that are holding you back from being this person? This is what Paul writes again in 1 Corinthians. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable. It keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Again, you're reading that with me going, yeah, but. Or you're going, that's not me, but I sure would love to have a friend who's like that. I sure would love to be married to somebody who's like that. I sure would love to have a boss who's like that. I sure would love to live next door to somebody that describes. See how we do it? We deflect that off so quickly because we see us as not capable. We've done so much lipsticking that we've lost sight of the fact that we can shift, we can make a decision to head in this direction versus the direction that's taken so much from our life. What would this give to your life if this were you? Don't leave it up to everybody else to become. Become the person you wish everybody else was. Give that to somebody else. If you're a boss, be this kind of boss. If you're a spouse, be this kind of spouse. If you're a student, give this gift to your teacher. If you're a teacher, be this person for your students. And you watch how different the year starts to feel. So let me summarize this into 3 words that hopefully will help you remember what we're talking about doing here. 3 words, real simple. Evaluate, liberate, subjugate. Here's what I mean. Take a moment to look in the mirror over the course of the next day or so and really stop with, here's what I got to get better at, here's the weight I got to lose, here's the money I got to save. Stop with the goals for a second and really identify, where am I? How do I navigate my relationships with people around me? How do I navigate my relationship with God? What are the things that are keeping those things from being what I would hope they are? Is it my anger? Is it my jealousy? Is it my dishonesty? Is it my addictions, whether those are chemical or digital or whatever the case may be? Are there things that are getting in the way of those relationships being healthy and good and whole? And then liberate yourself from those. Let go of them. Decide this is no longer, it's like we're on a leash, but nobody hooked the leash onto us. We're holding on to the leash. So let go of it. Liberate yourself from that. If you were to do some evaluation and realize the reason you struggle with driving is because you wear a blindfold every time you do, the next step would be take the blindfold off, right? Like liberate yourself from that. So these things that keep getting in the way, liberate. And I know it's easier said than done. I know it's really easy for me to say, I don't know your circumstances. I don't live in your shoes. I totally get it. But there are ways for you to liberate you from the things that are holding you back. And then last is subjugate. That old saying, like, don't let go of one vine before you've got another vine. I don't know who thought Tarzan should be the person for us, but like that's the thing, right? You don't leave one job till you got another job lined up, so on and so forth. Same kind of thing here. You're going to naturally subjugate or make yourself subject to something. It could be food, it could be the internet, it could be Netflix, it could be a person that you are infatuated with, it could be anything. You're naturally going to end up there. So choose to subjugate yourself to the one we just described. Subjugate yourself to him, to Jesus, and let him take the lead. We say all the time, following Jesus. We mean obeying Jesus. Like where he goes, I go. If he goes left, I go left. If he goes right, I go right. His footprints are going to lead in a very different direction than the ones we're wanting to plant ourselves. And so this idea is I'm going to go, but he's the boss. So I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to learn. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to learn and improve at being patient. And I'm going to learn and improve at being kind and not keeping records of wrongs and not demanding my own way. And he'll show me how, because I'll start watching him and he'll be in charge. And here's how I think you can get started. Now, I told First Service this because I love you the same. I'm going to tell you this. The question that I'm about to encourage you to ask might be the question that makes you go, I don't want to come to this church anymore. Because it's not easy. And you're really not going to want to do it. But I would encourage you to find somebody that you really trust and you really love and you know loves you, and ask them this question: am I holding on to something that's holding me back? See, I told you. What if you sat down for coffee with that person? You went for a walk with that person. You watched a game with that person. And you just asked, listen, I'm about to ask you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. You're not going to want to answer it honestly because you love me and you're kind. But I really want my year to be different than last year. I really want to get better. I really want to improve in some things. And so can you help me identify anything that I'm holding on to that's really, at the end of the day, holding me back? And then be open. Don't get defensive. That's going to be the real trick. Don't tell them why they're wrong. You ask them to share that with you. So what is it? Help me lay those things out. That's part of the evaluation process. And then that same person or that same group of people can be part of helping you liberate yourself from it with accountability and encouragement and support. And together, because we're not made to do this following Jesus thing by ourselves, together you can begin those steps. Together you can evaluate, liberate, and subjugate. And what I think will happen is that at the end of 2026, you may not list off a bunch of things that you conquered. You may not list off a bunch of things that you accomplished. But I would bet that you will be able to describe the person you became, how you grew, how you stretched, how you stepped out of so many of the things that have been holding you back from the life that you want to live and the life that God wants you to live. And so it may not be that you end 26 with a bunch of money or a bunch of fame or a bigger, better job or bigger, better house, a bigger, better car. But you might find yourself radically satisfied with who you've become. The new you. That's not you, but him. Let me pray, and then I want to share one more thing before we leave. Heavenly Father, thank you for loving us so much that you gave something for us. We recognize that we give ourselves to so many things that just want from us and always want more. And we've allowed them to become our master, and we just keep trying to layer on some self-improvement that, at the very least, fools us into thinking that they aren't really controlling us. So, God, will you help us to do some real evaluation of ourselves? Help us to look in the mirror honestly and to see the things that we're holding on to: greed, dishonesty, power, pride, needing to be right, needing to win, needing to be first. And help us to liberate ourselves from that and start following you. Start choosing an alternative way of living, an alternative way of seeing the world and seeing ourselves so that we can experience freedom and life to the fullest. We're so grateful that you love us enough to show us the way. In Jesus' name, amen.